And Mr. McCabe is one of the potential candidates, perhaps a leading one. We're told he may have been interviewed today. We don't have confirmation of that. The man sitting there, as you see, is Danny Coulson. He's a former FBI Deputy Assistant Director, commander of the Bureau's hostage rescue team, who has decades of experience. Danny, good to see you. On the list.
Good to see you too, sir.
You got former agents, you got 2 former judges, but at this time in our country, what qualifications would you like to see most, do you think are most needed right now in the new FBI director?
There's no doubt about that. It's independence. We need a director that is apolitical, has no political ambitions, no political aspirations, that will come in and stand up for the FBI. If there's one danger that the FBI faces is political interference, generally by the Department of Justice. I would love to see, I think it's maybe time that we had an FBI agent who is entrenched in the FBI's philosophy and dedication to the Constitution. I think it may be time that we have one of them appointed. The FBI is the finest investigative organization in the world. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And why not pick somebody that made it that good? I think it's time that we looked at an FBI agent to run this organization.
Well, you got 2 of them on the list. You got Adam Lee, who's apparently an agent, and I just mentioned Andrew McCabe. I mean, he apparently is very well thought of, within the Bureau, helped lead the Boston bombing marathon investigation. And man, oh man, he stood up to the senators. He has been out there with the flag and the banner of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, talking about its integrity, its credibility in his view. What do you think about him?
I think he's great. He's certainly well qualified to run a major investigation like that, the Boston Marathon bombing. That's a huge feather in his cap if he did that. I know he did. I think he's a good candidate. But there's some other good candidates in the FBI too, and I think they're talking to them.
Who do you like?
But it's time. I would go with Andrew. I think he's the right guy. He's been up the chain of command. He knows what it's like to stand on top, and that's hard. To be at the top of the food chain is not easy. You have to deal with a lot of competing factors back there. Congress, you have to deal with Congress. You have to deal with the Attorney General, which is probably the hardest thing he'll have to do. And I think he'd be a good director, and I would certainly support that appointment.
The others, the former federal prosecutor Michael Garcia has been mentioned. Fran Townsend, yes. Former head of Homeland dealing with terrorism advisor to George W. Bush. John Cornyn, the Texas senator, apparently has said he really likes being in the Senate. He'd be political. Trey Gowdy potentially would be political. Ray Kelly, the great former New York City police commissioner. But you still think someone who has experience and the trust of the troops, so to speak?
I think so. I know Ray Kelly. Ray Kelly's a tough guy, and you have to be a tough guy to be the director. Trey Gowdy, I think, would spit in the eye of the devil. I think he's a tough guy, and I think he's totally dedicated to finding the truth. But I think we're ready for the FBI to have their own director, somebody who's been through the academy, who's been through the culture, who's been through the trials and tribulations of being an FBI agent. I think it's time that we appointed one of them to be head of the agency.
The Wall Street Journal today has an editorial. Let me read you a bit about this. With all the accusations against the president and the reasoning behind the controversial firing, it says this, quote, "If Mr. Trump hoped to cover something up, sacking the FBI director is exactly the wrong way to do it. Every G-man with a mediocre lead will leak if he thinks politicians are trying to sit on evidence. The next FBI director will be watched like a Russian agent for any hint of political favoritism. He needs to ace the FBI pick now to neutralize Democratic opposition and reassure Bureau agents on the case." So do you think this should be, as you say, up in front, someone who the rank and file could then issue a sigh of relief, and people could say, this is not a political guy. This is someone who's going to push back against the White House, because we have seen in the past the controversies between the Clinton administration, Louis Freeh, and others. It gets like this.
Well, it does. And I think that you have to remember, FBI agents, including me, are apolitical. I mean, I vote, and I'm a member of a party, but I don't care about politics. I did the Iran-Contra investigation on President Reagan. I voted for him, but I went after him hammer and tong because it's my job. And I think that's what you're going to find from FBI people. They want to get the job done. They want to serve the American public and follow the Constitution. And they like to find out what's going on. They want to find the truth. And they don't care about politics. They don't want any interference. And somebody that'll stand up to political interference is the guy we need. And I think you see that in the candidates we have right now.
Do you think President Trump is up to, making that type of appointment?
I think he is. I hope he is. I know he's a big fan of the FBI. I do know that from my dealings with him. I've actually done some security work for him, and he loves the FBI, and I think he wants to keep it as independent as possible. I don't think he wants to do anything that would politicize the Bureau. I don't think that for a second. And I'm looking forward to his appointment. It's going to be good for the Bureau. It'll be good for the country.
And the president says they will make it likely by Friday, so the interviews will continue. You've been called yet, Danny? Have you gone for a job interview yet? Or you're...
Oh no, I've got plenty of work to do. I'm beyond that.
All right.
I would Xerox papers for him, but I'm not going to go back and work there again.
Okay, you can get the coffee. All right, stay Fort Worth. Danny Coulson, as always, thank you.
Thanks.
And Danny,
it's always a pleasure.
Thank you for your service to our country in the FBI.
Oh, thank you. I was honored.
Of course, we are too.